Hi everyone! Today we are going to be discussing primary and secondary sources, what they are and when to use them in our research. When conducting research on any topic, using many different sources provides us with historical context and allows us to gain a full understanding of a specific time period. Utilizing both primary and secondary sources are important in order to craft a well-rounded picture of what was happening during specific events. First, we will be discussing what are primary sources. Primary sources are first-hand, original materials created at the time of a historical event. They are focused pieces of information that provide a snapshot of what was happening in the moment of the time period or event. Some examples of primary sources are photographs and interviews and speeches, audio or video recordings, anything taken at the time of an event. They can also be letters and diaries describing events happening in real time. Primary sources are also artifacts or objects created at the time of the event, like posters, books, drawings, artwork, maps, government documents, and newspaper clippings from the specific time period. Secondary sources, unlike primary sources, are not first-hand experiences. They are one or more steps removed from the event. They retell, summarize, analyze, or interpret historical events in primary sources in order to inform the viewer or reader about what happened during the event or during a person's life. Secondary sources are things like textbooks and biographies written by an author who was not present at the event, or reviews and reports of events and newspapers written after the fact. Anything that wasn't written or created at the time of an event, but rather describes something that happened in the past, is considered a secondary source. Now, are newspapers primary or secondary? Newspapers are tricky because depending on the context, they could be either. When a newspaper is reporting at the time of an event, such as an eyewitness account or a description of events that are currently happening at the time or soon after, it is considered a primary source. When a newspaper is written to describe events that happened in the past, and any accounts written analyzing events that happened in the past are considered secondary sources. So this newspaper article, for example, was written in 1954 and contains Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter, was a first-hand account and report at the time of the event, so it would be considered a primary source. If the newspaper article was an analysis of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s actions written after the time period and event, it would have been considered a secondary source. In order to understand the entire picture of a time period or event, we need to use both primary and secondary sources in our research. However, different information needs can be better helped by primary or secondary sources. We use primary sources when we want a specific, authentic account of an event and shows us what perspectives were like at the time. They encourage us to form our own perspectives and think critically about the context in which the source was created or written. Secondary sources, on the other hand, are useful when we want an overview of an event or a person, and either shares researched information and facts or highlights the author's perspective on events. Think of it this way. Primary sources are more focused pieces of information that help show us a snapshot from a day or a moment in time. Secondary sources are more broad and tend to show us an overview of what happened by taking facts and research from primary sources in order to teach the reader about a topic. If you come across a source and you are unsure if it is primary or secondary, ask yourself the following questions. Was the author present at the event or soon after it happened? How does the author know the details about the event, such as dates, times, and names? And lastly, how does the author use more than one piece of evidence to draw conclusions? Asking yourself these questions will help you determine if the artifact was created at the time of the event or if it's an analysis after an event had happened. Let's recap what we discussed in this video. What are primary sources? Primary sources are original materials created at the time of an event. What are secondary sources? Secondary sources are one or more steps removed from the event and describe events after they had happened. Thank you for listening.